Hello everyone, and thanks for joining the session. Tonight we're working on bootstrapping Astrocasts. And I kind of want to pick up where we left off on the last session. On the last session we were working on the progress entity. And what this entity was going to do was allow us to keep track of the episodes that we were watching. So if I go to this episode here, let's go to navigation with Tailwind. It's the very first one. We'll do session 4. And the idea is if you're logged in as a user, it should remember where you were. So here it skipped ahead to 2 minutes and 6 seconds. If I play and scan ahead a bit, I should be able to go back to live sessions, go back to bootstrapping Astrocasts, and go to session 4, and it should jump ahead to where I was. So that's something that I got working just at the last end of the last episode. And one of the things that was on the list of things to do was throttle. But I was so excited about this feature that I decided to continue working on it offline and found a solution for throttling. So I was going to pick that up real quick. Let's see, where did we put that? I added throttle and debounce from a NPM module called throttle debounce. And if we go into, let's see, where would it be? Session? I can't remember if this is where it was at. Throttle. So I think I used throttle. Yeah. So essentially you have to watch an episode for at least 5 minutes, not 5 minutes, 5 seconds. After you've watched at least 5 seconds, we'll start reporting. So we see here is report now is going to report progress with the session video ID, and it's going to take the username or the user information from the request itself. Let's see here, time update. This is where if we have a user, we report data. And again, report data is being throttled so that it can only be called every 5 seconds. So if we look behind the scenes on our network tab, we should be able to see these progress requests being sent. So here we see one right away. So this was sent to report progress, another report progress, another report progress. So about every 5 seconds, it's giving us some additional progress information. The API for the Vimeo player, I think it said it was every 250 milliseconds it was going to report progress, or it was going to report the time update on the video that you're watching. And I didn't really want to have that many requests coming through because that would be probably far more load than I actually need to have. So that's where we're at with progress. So we did finish throttle. So I'm going to say progress is done. So for anybody who actually has a user account, everything should be good to go at this point. We should be able to go to the live website, and if you have a user, you should be able to start watching episodes, and you should be able to see things coming through. Ooh, looks like we've got something to work on here. That's probably due to some of the changes that we did recently. So I need to fix that, but I'm not going to do that now because that's going to take too much work against the live coding stuff. But if we go to the live sessions, the other big change that has happened since last week is all of the episodes should now be online, except for the 2 most recent, yesterday's and today's. They won't be there, but they'll be coming shortly. And then if you go to any one of the 2 projects, either Rewriting That Podcast or Bootstrapping Astrocasts, we'll see that you can watch the entire series now. So we've got 22 episodes of Rewriting That Podcast. There's 2 more that are still coming. And then we have, I think, 14 episodes of Bootstrapping Astrocasts, which is the session we're watching tonight. So this is all on here. A lot of the things that I want to do really hinge on having a user. So I want to make sure that those features get added to sort of help coax people into actually becoming users. Being able to see how far into the episodes you've already watched, at this level, so you could see that, you know, maybe the first 5 or 6 are grayed out because you've already watched them. You'd easily be able to see which ones are left. Oop, this one's got a weird name. I can go in and edit that. Let me go do that right now, actually. So we'll be in here later anyway. So the admin page is still using Easy Admin. I've been struggling with Easy Admin for the other project that I'm working on. This is pretty straight ahead for this project, but the needs for the other one are a little more complicated. And I'm sort of expecting that at some point they're going to get too complicated for this project as well. But at least for now, it's easy enough to just go in and update things pretty quickly. Cool. So I've been pretty happy with Easy Admin for this project. It's let me do a bunch of stuff without having to build anything custom yet, which is pretty amazing, really. All right, so let's get back to where we were at earlier. So I'm saying that throttle is done, so progress is done. The things I'd like to do to see if we can get working on tonight is adding a duration to the videos themselves. Although I might actually bump this to the end because I'm thinking about trying to get some more metadata from Vimeo directly, because as much information as I can get automatically from Vimeo, the better. So I think I might try to do that. So I'll bump that to the end. I'd like to set my settings, because already I'd like to be able to have people set their time zone. Right now the time zone is set automatically to UTC, but I want people to be able to pick their time zone. And then the other thing I'd like to be able to do is start scheduling sessions in advance. So I usually know which project and which session number should be coming up. So when someone's looking at the schedule, we should be able to see, let me see here. Got to get the code first, bin console, get calendar, there we go. So what I'd like to do is be able to say what this episode is. So, you know, still we need to know the time. You know, it's going to be 10 o'clock on November 6th, which is the episode right now, or 8 to 10, which is the episode that's happening right now. But there's a lot of stuff that I'm doing by hand right now, like having to remember to go into Restream and set titles. So I've only recently gotten better at doing this. But I know that this was going to be Astrocast session 14, and then the actual things that I'm going to be working on. This might not always be something I know super in advance, but I probably have a general idea. So what I'd like to do is have these things show up on the actual schedule, and then build in some automation where I can actually set these, set the titles on the streams. Right now I'm using a Restream for that. There's no reason that the site itself couldn't do that for me, or at least generate these things so I don't have to worry about those too much. The other thing is there's social alerts set up that they have that as soon as the stream starts, it'll send this message. So this could be automatically generated as well. And I have at least one person that has been talking to me about trying to get notifications sent out more regularly in advance. So if I have this sort of functionality built in, I could actually send tweets automatically when they need to go out. So if I know that there's going to be an episode 14 starting at 8 o'clock p.m., I can send a tweet at 10 in the morning, and then again at 3 in the afternoon to let people know that it's coming up and what it's going to be about. So that's kind of the long-term goal for some of this scheduling stuff. But this would be the first bit where we're matching this upcoming schedule that's coming from an iCal feed with live sessions. So I don't even know what would happen if I set a live session in advance right now. So that's probably the first thing we're going to do is go into the admin, create a session that doesn't have a video and see if that is even allowed, and then see how much information we can do with the video without actually doing anything with the video. So let's go ahead and jump into that. Let's go to admin and let's create a session for, let's say, in terms of my limited setup here with the import, I'm going to do Bootstrapping Astrocasts session 5 without a video. So 5 scheduled broadcast. I'm going to say, let's see, tomorrow's November 7th, so we'll do November 7 at 1600, which would be, well, let's do the 8th because that would actually be real. So 8th at 20, right? Yeah. And we should do the same thing for broadcast. Well, actually, we didn't actually broadcast it yet, so we want to do everything based off a scheduled broadcast. Video, it looks like it is going to require a video, which is a bummer. All right, so let's create a video first. Yeah, I guess I'll have to leave that for now. Looks like we have an empty one here. Let's just repurpose this one. So we'll call this to be discussed, description, excerpt, and we'll do publish date. We'll leave that empty. Vimeo ID will be empty. Awesome. Okay, so we should be able to create a session now. 5, scheduled broadcast, November 8. 20. All right, and we'll do to be discussed. Save changes. All right, let's see what happens here, because in theory, it shouldn't show up. Live sessions. All right, so recent sessions, it shouldn't show up here because it hasn't actually become available. So this is one place where we're going to have to tweak our code. So let's say scheduling in advance. Let's do recent sessions, episodes. It's questionable as to whether or not we should see it on this page. It looks like we're already smart enough to say that we don't show the date, the broadcast date. Okay, so we aren't showing the broadcast date. If I actually click on the episode, oops. All right, so yeah, we wouldn't want to show this anyway, so this is probably okay. So on the session, should not show embed if no Vimeo ID. All right, so those two things would fix those. So let's do those real quick just to get those cleaned up. So Astrocast video. The script bit. Let's find out what's below that div. Okay, so it's all in there. I only wonder because the margin top is 8 here. I don't know if that's appropriate. I don't know if it's appropriate in this case. So do session.video Vimeo ID. So if it has that, we can do this all the way up to the close script. All right. Yeah, so I don't like that being there. Maybe what we need. Rather than a margin top of 8, I think what we need is margin bottom of 8 here. Let's do margin bottom 8. Let's see if that does what I expect. All right, that sucks that up better. Navigation with tailwind, and we still get the same spacing. So I think that's probably more to my liking. I want to check to see that Twitch has the right tags. This is another thing that I want to have automated as well. It doesn't always remember the tags from broadcast to broadcast. And if the software itself could set those tags as appropriate, then that would be a lot better. All right, so we have the ability now to see this. It's to be discussed. For the title, so I want to show the broadcast date. So this is on the session, no. Let's see where that's actually living here. So we've got templates, live sessions, project. So project is where we're actually doing this. I want to set this to docked. There we go. All right. So project is complete. So if session broadcast is not empty, we want to show that. Else if session.schedule broadcast. We want to essentially do the same thing. I kind of feel weird about this, but I'm just going to be fine with it for now. All right, so we can see this is in the future, so November 8th at 8 p.m. All right, I guess we'll allow that for now. The other place was where? So recent session should not show scheduled episodes. All right, so session should show embed if, okay. So we fixed this one. On the project page, session list should show scheduled broadcast. So that does that. Let's see what we had on the live sessions page. Recent sessions just shouldn't have it, period. So that's good. That will, by removing that from here, this should go away. Browse, I don't think I want them to show up on browse because I want the first few things on this list. Actually, that should be a filterable thing. So in the future, when this is filterable, people should be able to decide whether they want to see expired episodes or future or not. So let's go ahead and do on the browse page, let's remove them. Well, on the browse page, let's show the broadcast date. So session broadcast. Let's copy the same code we had on the project page, which I've been doing a lot of copy and paste here on these projects, but I'm okay with that for now. So November 8th, awesome. So this one is scheduled for the future. Actually, did that? Yeah, it's the only one, okay. So I'm fine with that. Where else do we see this? So there, we should see it on the episode page itself. So that would be session, broadcast. So, cool, so now we see it there. All right, so we want recent sessions in browse to not show things in the future. So that's actually going to be the controller. So let's go to the browse controller. So find most recent sessions with no max results. So most recent sessions, order by published date. where, let's see, we want s dot broadcast. Can we do, what other wheres do we have? Where null, query builder, null. Where, okay. So where s.broadcast is not null. So let's see if that works here. Yeah, so it no longer shows on the browse page. And we're using the same code, so it no longer shows on this page as well. Cool, so that cleaned up both of those. But if we look at this page, it still shows up here. So I think that's fine. It makes sense. If you're curious about these, it would be good to see the upcoming ones. And I'm fine with that. So, okay, let's call that good. Scheduling in advance. The other thing I'd like to do is show live video on session page if session is live. So that's going to be something else we'll want to take a look at. All right, so scheduling in advance. If we go to the schedule page, the trick now is going to be looking to see for each one of these if there's actually an upcoming episode that matches that. Where I think we might run into some issues there is schedule controller. The next event and the upcoming events. Not sure what the time zones are going to be like, or the time zone and the actual dates are going to look like here. So it's going to take some experimenting, I think. Let's go back. Let's go to our video controller, or I guess it would be the session controller. Because we have session, actually that's not what I wanted, the session repository. There we go. So we have find most recent sessions. Sounds like we have an airplane flying overhead. All right, so we want to do find current or upcoming sessions. So we want, the order by doesn't actually matter, probably. So where broadcast is null, so if it hasn't been broadcast yet, and scheduled broadcast is not null. So for any episode that we have scheduled to broadcast, but we haven't actually listed it as broadcasting, we'll consider these current or upcoming sessions. If we go back to the schedule controller, let's get the session repository. And let's just play around with this for now. So let's do sessions equals find current or upcoming sessions. We'll just get all of them. So this is where I'm not sure how this is going to work. So session, if we look at scheduled broadcast, it's a date time. I'm just going to pass all of the sessions in. Well, let's do it this way. Oh, no. Here we go. So next live session. So here we have the list. And let's do another list here, upcoming scheduled sessions. We'll do session and sessions. We won't slice them, we'll just get them all. I just want to see what's in these. Session, no, we're not looking for start, we're looking for scheduled broadcast. Okay, so we see November 8th at 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Oh, really? p.m. We don't have an end date. So that's the difference there. Okay. And then we can do session.video.name, was it, I think? No. There we go. So we got TBD. All right, so we also get access to session.project.name. Yeah, bootstrapping Astrocasts, session.number, extra little thing there. Okay, so the goal is to combine these two. I want to make sure that we can actually combine these two. The proper place to do that is probably in the schedule controller. And an even better place to do this would be using some sort of CQRS, where we could actually merge these two concepts together for a proper read model. But I think that's stuff that I can do later, and it's not something we need to do now. So let's see here. I don't have any styling on this currently. I could copy some of the styling from here, but I wouldn't have the project names for the upcoming sessions, so that might be kind of odd. All right, so I'm going to play in here. I'm going to try and merge sessions and upcoming events and find some sort of key that would work for these. I think the key would probably be the time, the start time. So let's see what we can do. So DD sessions. Let's do... Let's collect these. So we can do some fun stuff. Each session let's get scheduled broadcast. And I guess let's turn this to seconds to get timestamp. Let's do the same thing with events. I just want to see from the perspective of the underlying data which things are stable. So events collect calendar events, get upcoming events. Then we'll do something similar, except we just have, I think, start. Let me double check the template because I would know. Yep, so event.start. So return event start. Then we'll do all. Let's see what we get here now on the schedule page. All right, so sessions only has one object. It has a session. That didn't work like I expected. Oh, I did each. I need to do map. There we go. All right, so one array, seconds. Let's see if we have the same thing. 15417, 15417, and then 7200. Says 0. That's wrong. So I'll get the time zone. So this is UTC, and these are America, Chicago. So they actually represent the same time, but the timestamp's not going to be the same. So UTC equals let's do this. So I think if we convert these, it might work. So session, get scheduled broadcast, set time zone. Actually, let's clone these. Can I set it? Yeah, I should be able to set time zone. I don't know why it's not. I don't know why it's not giving me the type hinting there. Session, get scheduled broadcast. Oh, maybe it's because it's being cloned. Take time. Time, get timestamp. I'm going to do the same thing here. All right, so yeah, the timestamp didn't change. Interesting. So this is UTC, which makes sense. And this is UTC. Now let's do a format. Same way we do here. November 8th. All right, so we needed the time to GA. All right, so November 8th at 8 p.m. That's right. November 8th at 10 p.m. No. All right, so this is treating. Let's not set the time zone anymore. Okay, so this works. November 8th at 8 p.m. So this is the part that I sometimes get caught up on with the time zone stuff, because if I set the time zone, apparently sets the time zone but doesn't change the timestamp. So even though it's stored in the database, I think the problem is it's stored in the database. Well, it's stored in these values are all stored in UTC. So get scheduled broadcast. So this is all already in UTC. These values are coming in the current time zone. What is So what I'd like to do is find a way to compare these. So if we get all of the upcoming events, because we could actually add an additional item here. So what we can do is return event, and we could say we can look for the session value. We could make it really basic. If this list of sessions all right. Map it, is it map in key? I did this with a reduce last time, but I think someone else helped me realize that it's probably an easier way to do it. Key, map with keys. So map with keys, function item. All right. So what I can do here is map keys, and I can return a key and the session itself. And the key can be something based off of the scheduled broadcast time. So session, get scheduled broadcast format, and then let's use some common format. So let's go to, let's look at date format. There we go. Where do I find the formats? Here we go. So let's see, they have, I don't think these values will work right. So I guess we'll just generate one. So Y, and then month, we'll do 0 to 12. It's lowercase m. Day, it's lowercase d, and then hour, 0 through 23. Now let's do h, 0 through 23, h, and then 0 to 59, I. Yeah, we want I. And if we DD sessions, DD events, so what we can do here now is pass sessions into here. And we can say if sessions, well, $key inside sessions, then event sessions key. We'll do the same format on the event start. And that will become our key. Otherwise, we'll set the session to null. This might actually give us a out of memory error. Oh, I guess not. So we got sessions. This gives us, that didn't work right. So map with keys. It's not what I expected. It's not comma. It's kind of weird. So this needs to be a fat arrow to get the expected result. All right, so there's one. The key is the flattened version of the date, and then the events are a flattened version of here. So let's see, we should have one of these. Session is null on all of these so far, and session is null here also. All right, so let me also let's keep the key so we can see what that looks like. Apparently that's not generating correctly. So 2018 11 6. This is looking for 2018 11 8 20. 11 7 16. 11 8 16. 11 8 20. 2018 11 08 20. So why is that not working? Array key exists. Is this spelled wrong? Ah. Let's see if all on an array. Where else am I calling? Oh, I'm calling all on it again. Here we go. It's doing this earlier. Problem is it thinks it's a collection at that point. All right, so events, null, 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 session, yay. All right, that's cool. So that works. So we can see inside there if we actually have a session. So we no longer have to pass what we were passing here. So we don't need to pass up current or upcoming sessions, because that's all being handled inside upcoming events. So here we go. So we'll do upcoming events. No, just events. Actually, we'll rename this. Sessions does not exist. Is that in the template? Yeah, okay, so we can go into our template now and remove that bit of code also. Here we go. So we no longer need this temporary loop. And we can do div event.session. So if we have a session, we can do something differently than if we don't. So let's do and then an else. Do cool. Session 5, and then title. Cool. All right, so we're always going to show the date, but we can now style this a little bit different. So let's do list reset. All right, and then in the case of not having this information available, let's say to be announced. That seems kind of redundant. Maybe I don't want that at all. So we'll only show it if it's actually there. But we need some padding, so let's do all right. Let's do py1. And we can probably link to it, so we can make this whole thing a link. Path, do session, project. Actually, I need to double check to see how he's doing that. Path. Hey, Sim Guy 321, thanks for joining. Let's see, we got path to project, path to a session. All right, here's what we need. So we need the slug and then the number. So, how are you doing this evening? So people should be able, oh, something fell apart there. All right, let's finish making this a link. There we go. All right, so now people are going to be able to click on this and get directly to the episode if they're looking for that. So they'll be able to see this, then click around into the rest of the project if they're interested in that. The idea being that when this episode is the one on top, I want this to actually play the Twitch player. So I need to find a way to determine if the next event is the one we're looking at, which I think we can probably do pretty easily. So if we go to the schedule controller, we ask for the calendar events, and then we get the next event from there. So let's go now to the session controller. And we're going to want the, no, this is not the session controller. No, it is. Never mind. My bad. So we also want to get the calendar events. And then we can pass in the next session. Get next event start. So this is just getting the start time, I believe. So we're getting, we're just getting the start value. So, let's do this. All right, so let's not do this logic here. We're going to do something similar. So we want to compare start, which should be a date time instance, I believe. Cache interface. Yeah, so we want a cache interface. Date time. So if session get scheduled broadcast. Hey Joe, how's it going? Thanks for joining. Diff, call our next event start date. So that's going to give us a diff. Let's see. How do I compare them to see if they're actually no difference? PHP compare date time equality equal. There we go. I could just do equal equal. That sounds exciting. It sounds like Joe just got back from a meetup. I was on a panel of professional devs talking to other pro devs and college students. Awesome. I'm going to try this and see. So I can't do the triple equal because that would be same object, but it's not true. So let's see if this actually works. So session get scheduled broadcast is, let's just do in progress. Equal to session get scheduled broadcast. So if I'm really lucky, this might even still be able to work right now. So let's see if it first works. All right, so this is for November 8th at 8 p.m. So I'm really close to this edge, but let's see anyway. So let's go in here. Let's change this bootstrapping Astrocast to be scheduled for today, so November 6th. I think what I had in here was now minus 1 hour. Let's do now minus 2 hours. And then let's do session and see if it's in progress. So up here, oh no, if in progress, and that's not working. So there's something not quite right there. Let me double check to see if everything else is fine. All right, so yeah, so it's picking this up. Bootstrapping Astrocast session 5 has the right time now. So in progress is empty. Let's see what we have. So session controller. This is returning an actual datetime object, start. And this is scheduled broadcast. So these, I wonder if this is because they're in different time zones. The thing I was doing in schedule controller, let's do this. Let's see if comparing them this way makes them equal. All right. So apparently we can't actually compare these two things as being equal, even though they are referring to the same time, just in different time zones. I hate time zone math. Absolutely hate it. All right, so this is good though, because the idea is that in theory, someone should be able to click on an upcoming episode, and if it's actually on now, they should be able to watch it. The thing that this isn't going to be able to do is sort of watch to see when the next episode is on, unless we decide to make it do that, which we might. We'll see how it looks on the home page. So let's go ahead and open up home and see the fancy video loader stuff. It might be time to copy this stuff into its own template so it can be reused. But I may just copy and paste for now. So in theory, this is only going to happen when the broadcast is definitely showing. So I don't need to do any of the logic to turn it on later after the fact. So this may actually be way easier. Let's do and I actually want to put this in an else if. Because if I by chance happen to get the video uploaded to Vimeo and online before the timeout happens, I want to use that instead. So do else if, and then we only need one end if. So if we have a Vimeo video attached, we should just load it, which is what should happen on this one. Ooh, else if tag, expecting tag. Did I spell it wrong? What's up with that? Ah, I did. There we go. So it should show the video if there is one that exists. If it doesn't, and it's on now, we should actually show the Twitch player. So let's go to the home page. We can probably use the same logic here. We'll use the same script tag too. Close script. Well, it's not actually going to be this particular iframe, but we're going to use this. The rest of it will be the same. Div ID Twitch player. And then find this little bit. Where's the script stuff? There we go. I don't want to do any of that nonsense, and we'll just start the player. And we won't look for online or offline or anything like that. This is just going to be really simple to get started. All right, Twitch player, make it happen. ID is Twitch player. So Joe, one of the things that we just found out right now is that the stuff somewhere along the way wrecked the live player, so it no longer resizes correctly. Let's see if this is going to give us a problem. Twitch is not defined. Ah, yeah. Right, so we need more script tags. Twitch. Here it is. Yeah, it should be easy to resize, but essentially when I started mucking around with everything related to the Astrocasts player, or the Astrocast tag, and remove the shadow DOM, that's what happened. So for some reason it's just on the home page, so I need to look into that a little bit more and figure out what happened there, because that's it's behaving differently, because it's doing the thing where it doesn't actually have, well, there's no shadow DOM anymore, which I think is probably part of the problem. But when I undid that, there was something that I had accounted for here somehow that is no longer being accounted for. So it's kind of annoying, but essentially this page hides things first. So the iframe originally gets loaded without any size, I believe. And then the player doesn't, or the web component doesn't have a chance to go back in to resize everything, I think is what the problem is. So I've noticed that's an issue on this page, but it looks like it's fine on this one. Let's see, bootstrapping Astrocast. Here we go. It seems to be fine here, but that is mostly because it is, I believe the reason is that it's not hidden initially. So I think it works fine here. Cool. So this is working pretty much like I would have expected. Schedule. This page lists the episodes. It would let you actually click into it. What would be kind of nice, now that we have this concept of something is actually live now, is if you could click maybe, I don't know, schedule, start, like this should probably just have a link directly to the next session that's live, so that you could watch it on the actual page that it's supposed to be on in the end. Afterwards, this is going to end up looking a little differently because it's not actually going to be playing live anymore. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this, at least for now. It's more or less doing what I wanted. The schedule here is listing the upcoming episodes. If I've actually given something a title, it's listed there. If I go in and give it a proper title afterwards, I can do that. So let's go to the video. We'll say this one was, I can actually just copy it from Restream. Titles, so we'll do duration settings, scheduling in advance, just to give people an idea of what this is actually going to be like in the end. So I can actually give that there, save changes, and then now it actually is going to list that. So if I'm able to stay up ahead, and it'll be a lot easier when I know that people will be able to see what's coming up ahead, then I'd be able to use this to do scheduled tweets automatically just based on the data in the database, so that I can tell people, you know, a couple of times in advance during the day that, hey, there's going to be an episode starting at 8 p.m. Central Time, and it's going to be about this for this project. So that's kind of the long-term goal, but the short-term goal was to be able to at least start showing this stuff in advance. So again, the browse page doesn't show episodes that haven't been recorded yet, so it's not going to show this upcoming episode. Live sessions, the recent sessions, similarly won't show it, but if you go to a specific episode, it will be listed here. So we see the duration settings, scheduling in advance. It's possible that, I guess schedule is sort of already doing that. It's listing the upcoming episodes. So if you want to see which upcoming episodes are coming, this is where you would go. Cool. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. So we have show live video on session page. If that session is live, we've got that. Cool. So I think I'm okay with this. I want to kind of play with it and see how usable it is. Maybe I will jump real quick to seeing if I can figure out what's wrong with the homepage, because I really don't want it to look so janky. This is not really very cool. So let's see here. Just review real quick what it's doing. So we go to the homepage. So initially, what it is doing is live video. Initially, the live video is hidden, and that's where we have our Astrocast video object. We have it watching. I don't think watch is actually doing anything anymore. Yeah, so I'm going to remove this bit of code. Inside here, we're watching a div, or it's going to be controlling a div, and this is where I think things are kind of falling down. This div gets replaced with other stuff. The way that the Astrocast videos tag works is that it looks to see what's inside here, finds any iframes, and then does something interesting. So let's look for Astrocasts video. So setup resize. It does a query selector for an iframe. It gets the width and height attributes from that iframe, and then it sets the attribute and nullifies width and height. And then as soon as it's connected, it adds an event listener for resize, and then it actually forces a resize. So the problem, I mean, I can see it right here, is that this setup resize is called. This iframe doesn't exist. It just doesn't. Not at this point. I'm almost positive. So let's double check. Subscribing to unknown event playback blocked. need to start watching. And oh, it does have an iframe. Ah, but it doesn't have a width or a height yet. Oh, all right. So this is the other weird thing. That I think these debug values are live. So I think this is the same iframe instance. So let's do I clone in JavaScript. Can't remember. Well, didn't complain. Clone is not defined. All right, so how do I script clone object.assign? Yeah, let's do that. It's probably not the best way to do this, but I just want to see if this is a case where it is updating this value later. All right. And then let's do the same thing in this callback for resize. So all right, so oh, that's not what I intended. There we go. No, that's not it either. Let's do a resize. All right, so I guess that's not working at all. So the thing I might try to do here is just kick this down the way a bit. So we'll get the iframe, if not iframe or not iframe.width. Set timer. Wait 5 seconds. All right. All right, so it was in do setup resize. So it had those values, and it has the aspect ratio at this point. So none of that was actually important at all. So let's undo all of that. Is it this resize that's happening too soon? So I wonder if that's it then. Because if this is still 0, let's try that. So if the way that it works is it looks at this box that surrounds the iframe and looks for its width and uses its width to determine the width and height of the iframe afterwards. This is how it resizes to be whatever size you need it to be. If this value is, or if it's hidden, or if this bounding rectangle is hidden, it might have a width of 0. So let's see if that's the case. Yep. All right, so it never goes there, which is the problem. Let's go here. So Twitch player online. What I think we can do is, so here's where it's actually making the changes. So this is where it's going to remove hidden on live video. So let's do hello, Specanu. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Thanks for joining tonight. So console log online. I want to see when it becomes online here. And I'm guessing it's going to come online after new width. Online. Oh, actually, did I remove the thing that said new width? I did. Let's try it again. Yeah, so it comes online after it's already tried to do something with the iframe. So this is where it's actually showing now. So what I think we need to do, I don't know if there's a way for the web components to know when something outside of them have changed in the sense of automatically detecting. So what I think we need to do is after we've removed this class is we tell the player, or we tell the web component to do something. So let's see, are we doing document query selector? What did we call it? It doesn't have an ID, so let's do equals. All right, let's do. So we want to get the Twitch player wrapper, and then we want to call resize manually after the player goes online. Cannot read property resize of null. Oh, there we go. There we go. Now it's back to normal. Awesome. So that actually turned out to be a lot easier than having to dig through some Shadow DOM stuff. It still seems really fragile to me, but hopefully this will all go away. So in chat, someone's saying that if you're trying to make the video player responsive, I think you're overcomplicating things a bit. It should be possible with just CSS. It should be, and in some cases it is. The problem is that I wanted this to show only in some cases, and most of the CSS solutions that I had, or most of the CSS only solutions that I found didn't work very well because of needing some sort of JavaScript to manage the size of the iframes. If you have like an awesome example of CSS only resizing, that would be pretty cool if you could share that. But most of the stuff that I looked at required something to look for the size of the iframe to resize it. I've run into this kind of stuff a few times before, and every time it's pretty annoying. So one of the things that I liked about this solution was that it was actually pretty easy to move other places. So rather than having to customize the CSS in every place, I'm able to use the Astrocasts video component wherever I want to. So in this case, I'm wrapping a Twitch player on the session page. I'm wrapping a Twitch player in the case that that session is actually active. So if we go to schedule, the session is active, so I can go here and it should show the live Twitch stream. But if I look at one of the older episodes that's on Vimeo, then it's showing the Vimeo player instead. Again, I would love to have found a nice solution that was just CSS, but to get something responsive, okay, so yeah, they're saying you need to know the aspect ratio, but that should be it. So that's ultimately that's what this little Astrocast video widget does. When the page loads, or when the video element loads, it gets the iframe, it gets the width and height of the iframe, and then it calculates the aspect ratio, and then it uses this aspect ratio as an attribute so that when it's resized, it uses that against the bounding client. So whatever space you're in, it uses that to determine the width and the height using the aspect ratio. Let me see if I can pull up the link that you've shared here. Yeah, so I think name responsive iframes. Let's see if I spelled that correctly. Iframe width, height, CSS, iframe container. What is the aspect? Oh, yeah. So if you know the aspect ratio, this solution works. I guess the thing that I was looking for was something a little more generic in case I didn't know the aspect ratio, or just to try one of these different solutions. So I probably made it more complicated than I needed to. I would not disagree with that. This solution kind of freaked me out a bit. I feel like I saw this one. These magic numbers. Yeah, I think I might have some stuff still in my app.scss. Let's see here. Do I have video? Yeah, I guess that's the only thing I still have left from that. I think I tried some pretty weird things early on to get this to work, and it didn't. I don't remember if I used this specific one. It's markable, absolute. Well, I might try that at some point. Now that I have the other thing already built, I kind of want to keep working on that, but thanks for sharing that in chat. Okay, so we have the front page working again. So it's actually going to show the video when it's supposed to. So where are we at? So we did recent sessions, scheduling in advance stuff. I have about half an hour left. So I think maybe just for fun, let's try this CSS solution. It's the height by the width %. So that's this 56, right? 56. So 1920. Yeah. I am curious to see if this just works out of the box. I would be annoyed, but also happy. So let's try this, just to kind of put this question to rest. I feel like I know I've used this solution in the past. I don't know if there's any reason not to. So let's iframe container. Frame container iframe. All right. So in theory, if what this article is saying, this should just work. So let's see what happens if we completely remove the Astrocast video. Let's do this. Frame container. Yeah. See, it's getting annoyed with query selector. The resize functions doesn't exist, as it shouldn't. All right, so let's try it on the other pages as well. Let's try it here. All right, well, the live instance works as expected. And it's not doing anything else fancy here. Then let's check to see if other episodes work as well with the Vimeo player. And it looks like it does. Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, I know I've used this trick in the past, but I could swear I tried all sorts of interesting things this last time and this one didn't pop up. And none of the other ones worked. So, yeah, thanks for that. I'm going to call you Spec. I hope that's okay, because I'm not sure how to pronounce the rest of your handle. So I think this means we could actually probably remove the web component for Astrocast video, which is a little sad in some ways, but also not in others. So I think everything should still work. We shouldn't get any errors loading the pages. Honestly, if it's a stable CSS only solution, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, what did I do last time? Fluid CSS iframe video. Fluid with video. I think this was the one that had a bunch of really weird suggestions, and actually this looks like it's the same. I feel like this is the one I tried, actually. I might have just been having bad luck that day. Yeah, I think I got too hung up on the aspect ratios. Yeah, this page is looking familiar to me. So what they did was gave the same CSS solution right around here, and then continued to talk for 2/3 of the page on other solutions that were more complicated. So totally missed this. Okay, cool. All right, so let's be done with this for now. So where are we at? Okay. Get thumbnail and metadata from the Vimeo API. Adding duration. Adding duration might be kind of boring, so let's try to look at settings. Just want to get an idea where GitHub has their settings, because I like how GitHub does things usually. So what kind of URL do they have? So your profile, settings. What's the difference between profile? That's what profile is versus settings. All right, so we just have /settings. Okay, so let's probably use that same thing for Astrocasts as well. So we'll go to /settings, which right now shouldn't exist. So we should get a nice 404. The other thing that GitHub does, let's see here, GitHub. If I go to /settings, it redirects to profile, and then it has other things like account, billing. Trying to figure out which things probably would make sense for time zone. If anyone has suggestions for where time zone should live on here, that would be awesome. Profile, just be name, email. I guess location and time zone stuff would probably all be good here. All right, so let's do make controller. Okay, and we have settings index. Let's move that settings to profile.html.twig. All right, so profile, let's do settings /profile. And then let's go in our routes. And we want to do a redirect. I think this is where we'd want to do it. So about, redirect. Care about that. How to configure redirect without custom controller. All right, path/controller. All right. Let's do settings. Redirection controller. And then we'll do route, and we'll give it the settings.profile route. And then I'm not going to do permanent just yet. So let's see what happens now. So we should go to /settings, which should redirect to settings/profile. And this gives us the default template. So let's go ahead and open up profile.html.twig. Right, does that make sense? Your profile. And we don't have anything in here just yet. So what we want to do is create a form. So if we look at what we have for forms before, we had a form type for command object for user registration. Then we had a user registration type. So let's add another DTO. Let's do bin console make form, and we'll call it settings profile. I think I have to add type at the end, but I will anyway. Name of the entity of the fully qualified model class name. Let's do, I think what we had before was this. So we have user registration, which is, where was it? I guess I can't do that. So we'll do app form command object, and then settings profile. I think we might need to create this object first before we can create it. So let's go ahead and create it first. So class settings profile. And it's just going to be a plain old PHP object, except it's going to have some assertions on it. All right, so the things that we're going to have on our settings for right now are essentially going to be the time zone. So let's see what we have on our users. Get time zone. Yeah, so we have a time zone setting. So we want assert not blank, and we want time zone here. I think there might be a time zone option. No, there's not. So that could be a little weird. We're not going to pass in anything like a username or anything like that. We're going to get all of that directly from the user object in the session. So we're not going to worry about that. Let me see. I don't remember if I had getters and setters. Yeah, so let's generate those. So this object, it doesn't really matter as much how you create this because it very specifically is used just as a DTO object. So you can do whatever you want with it. And that usually means keeping it simple. So here we're just doing plain getters and setters. There's no business logic. It is purely something that is used to transfer data from one format to another. So now we should be able to use the settings profile DTO here. So let's create this. Oh, doesn't exist. Let's try it again here. So app form command object settings profile. Name of the entity or the fully qualified model class name. All right, let's just not deal with it then, and we'll do it by hand. So if we go into our settings profile command object, we can go to our settings profile type. This is where we can set our data class. So let's do, copy it from here. So this is what binds this form to the DTO. So normally this would be an entity, but here we're going to do a DTO. So we're doing settings profile, which is in our command object. And then we can add our field. So here we're going to add a field called time zone. And we are going to specify it is of type time zone type. So this is something that I had found exists, which is pretty cool. So time zone type class. Now for the controller, was it settings controller? There we go. We want to do some stuff with the profile. So I want to copy some of the code that we have for, let's see, was it our session controller? Or was it our security controller? No. Registration controller. So this has a bunch of the logic that we want to do. So this is verify email address. That's not spelled right. Here, so we're going to copy this bit of code. Or at least be able to reference it. Let's reference it actually. So what we need to do first is create an instance of our DTO. Then we need to create a form instance for the DTO type and pass in the DTO instance. So this is how these things get bound together. So for our settings controller, for the profile action, we need to create a new settings profile. So it's not going to have any values to begin with. Then we're going to create the form itself. This create form, and then we're going to specify the settings profile type class and pass in the settings profile instance. So normally the way that people would probably do this is this would be a an actual entity instance. So one of our model instances, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do that at a different level. And then we ask the form to handle the request. So we need profile to get the request. And then handle it. So this is where it will determine whether or not it was a post type. If it wasn't a post type, it won't do anything. It'll just pass through. If there are errors, it'll actually fill in the form with some error information so that we can render the errors. And if it's a successful post, then it's going to let us go through. So what we're going to check for next is if the form is submitted, and if it's valid, we're going to treat this as a case where we have to do something. So this is where we're actually going to update the user's profile settings. Otherwise, if it falls through, what we're going to do is we're going to pass back, we're going to pass the form itself to the view. So we'll go form. So if this is just viewing the profile page, it's going to render the first time because it's not going to be a submitted form. If the form is submitted but it's invalid, it's just going to render the form again, so we'll be able to render error messages if needed. The idea is that if we get into here, then we've actually made some changes. So let's look to see how we handled it for registration. For registration, we try to do some additional validation. We check to make sure that the username they've asked for isn't already used. If it is, then we add errors to the form. We also check for the email address. We're not going to do any of this sort of thing because I don't think we'll have to, but we can take a look in a bit. And then after we've done this additional checking, I'm checking to see if the form is still valid. If it's not, because we've added some errors, then we render the form and we're done. But this is where we get to start to actually do things with our user again. For our actual users, this is where we're creating a new user instance, and then we eventually persist it right here with the entity manager. So in our case, what we're going to do is we're going to need to get the user, and I think we get that from the session token storage. Let's see here, security controller. No. I think it was on the session controller. We get the user. Yeah, so we asked for is role granted user tickets. Okay, so we need token storage interface. Token storage interface will get us access to the users who's currently logged in. So we'll ask for that. All right, and user equals token storage, get token. I should be able to get user. Not sure why it's not letting me type hint that. This is token storage. Did I import that? Yeah, I did. Oh, that's CSRF token storage. All right, so we need it from core, not CSRF. All right, so we get the user. We can do some additional checking here to make sure the user is actually an instance of our user, which would probably be a good idea, but I think we won't ever run into an issue with that. So, so now we have a user. What we should be able to do is start getting information from the DTO. So here we're getting the user registration instance that we created way up here. Let's see. Yeah, so this user registration is going to be filled in with the form data. So what we should be able to do is say user set, user set time zone to the value of settings profile get time zone. And I think, was this just dealing with a string? I think it was. Yeah, so we don't specify, so I think it should be okay. So we're setting the time zone on the user, and then we need to do, we need to actually save that change out. So the way that we do that is with flushing the entity manager, so we need to ask for that as well. Let's see here. Did I? So we're just using this get doctrine. All right. That works for me. This get doctrine, get manager, flush. And this should ensure that we now have the correct information. And then what I think I'd like to do is return this. Do we have a redirect? Yeah, redirect to route settings.profile. So this is going to do a redirect to the get view of this page, which should have our updated data in it. So let's see if this works, at least as far as rendering. Okay. And then let's look at what we did for registration. HTML. Actually, no, that's not going to be there. Let's go in our templates. Index. Here we go. So we did some stuff with customization with the forms here. So I'm going to use the same sort of code in this spot as well. So let's go now to settings, profile. So we're still passing in form. So there's some of this generic stuff that will just work. I'm going to try and load the page like this and just see if it works. Okay, so email address doesn't exist. So what we need to do right off is start using things that are actually available to this function or to this form. So we'll do save, changes, and instead of email address, we need it to be time zone. There we go. And one of the nice things that it does is it breaks out all of the available time zones that are available to PHP. And it does this by way of our settings profile type by setting the time zone type here. Now, the only thing that I'm a little surprised of is that it doesn't seem to take into account the existing time zone for the user. So I think what we need to do is go back to our settings controller and do the same sort of thing up here that we do below. We need to take the settings profile and we need to set a value. So we need to set the time zone to whatever the user's time zone is. So let's see here. Let's actually bring this out to the top. And then we can set the settings profile time zone to user get time zone. I just want to make sure this gets a string. Yeah. Okay, so now when I reload the page, it defaults to UTC, which is the actual time zone that is set on my user. So if I want to go to, say, America, Chicago as my time zone, it looks like it maybe worked. Let's try again. So let's go to settings, and it's changed to Chicago. All right, so it looks like that's working. Let's double check in the database to make sure. Public user. Yep, so it sets the time zone to America, Chicago, which is good. So the next thing I want to try is America, New York. And let's see real quickly how interesting we can get on some of the other pages. So like on the schedule page, this should say 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. So let's see here just how painful that's going to be. Oh, I didn't want to zoom that. Okay, so session start time. What's this false value? So the way that this works, new date time zone, set time zone. So what I was seeing before, set time zone. In progress. I might have to take some time on this to think through this a little bit more, to actually try to make this change. I'm happy it's there now. I don't actually have a way to get to the settings page yet. I'm guessing I'm going to have to do some sort of drop-down menu here. But at least for the time being, I think I'm going to have to be done for tonight because we're getting close to our end time here. But the fact that we can actually show the time zone, I'm going to change this registration header at least. Registration to profile. Makes me pretty happy. So this was actually something on our list, I believe. No, it wasn't. Oh yeah, my settings. So we don't have a link to it. So let's actually uncheck that. Let's say settings, profile controller, select time zone, and then navigation. Profile controller is done. So navigation. The other thing I guess we should do right away is probably secure this. So this is something that we haven't looked at yet. So if I open a new incognito window and go to this URL, things are going to get weird because it thinks I'm logged in as an anonymous user. So this was actually something I mentioned earlier where I said that maybe we'd need to deal with this, deal with the fact that this user might not actually be our user. And I could probably fix that right now and say if $user, well no, if user instance of user dd user. So what this is going to be is it's going to be an instance of Symfony's core user. If we look at anon, that's its name. It's not actually an object, I don't think. Let's actually do dd on this. Yeah, so it has a secret apparently, but it doesn't have any roles. Authenticated is true. It's essentially an anonymous token. It's not an actual user, but it is a user. It's this weird thing that's built into Symfony's security stuff that sort of trips me up most of the times. So let's go into our security.yaml, and what we need to do is set another access control. So right now, the entire site is wide open with the exception of admin, requires a role admin. And then we have verify email address requires role user. What we need to do now is add an additional access control to settings and roles role user. So essentially any user should be able to get here. If I try to get here now as an anonymous user, it should redirect me to log in, which is I think what we'd expect. If I'm here as a regular user, it lets me in because I have access to role user. So this is just a little bit of security stuff to make sure that only the right people actually get to the settings pages. A lot of these other pages don't have the same sort of requirements because I want these to be publicly available. There might be some page level changes that I want to make on here. For example, eventually I might make it so that episodes that are older than, say, a month, you have to be logged in to see them. In that case, it's not going to be a global level of access control where I'll say you have to be a user. What's going to happen is it'll be like a page level control somehow, looking at the content of the actual thing that we're looking at. So in this case, the session, to see what sort of requirements are available on the session. But in the meantime, I think I'm satisfied with this. I think if I actually pushed this code live, I'd be pretty happy with it. I could actually start scheduling things out. People would be able to click on the session that is currently live and actually see it. Although right now, I'm not sure why the player isn't loading. There's always something. So we just crossed over past 10 o'clock, which means the next session is actually not currently playing. So this is no longer the next session. I think if I switched the session controller, let's see if we get next event. If we switch this to 3 hours, it would play again. There we go. So, so that could be a potential downside if someone shows up and there's 10 minutes left of the episode because I'm still working on it, and it doesn't show up. That could be a little weird. On the other hand, I also have episodes that start at 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock. Now, I guess that should be fine. I might actually leave it like this, because I think it probably makes sense to do so. And then as soon as this episode actually gets published live on Vimeo, I would switch over to the Vimeo version. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for joining. We had a couple of different people in chat tonight. Appreciate the comments and the feedback. Appreciate the removal of the web component I was so excited about. I did learn how to do a web component. I did share how that works. So at least that came out of it. But in the meantime, yeah, I'm pretty excited that this is a simpler solution. Until I find out that it doesn't work on mobile or some other weird thing, I'll probably leave this CSS solution in place. So thanks for sharing that. All right, well, have a good night. I will be back tomorrow on the next session of that podcast. Working on that podcast, I've decided to ditch Easy Admin because Easy Admin, at least for that podcast, is being nothing but a pain. It's fighting me at every step. It's been great for Astrocasts because Astrocasts has less weirdness to it for some reason. But for that podcast, it's just not working out. So I'll start picking up some custom backend stuff on that podcast starting tomorrow. Thanks again. Have a good night.